Is 13 minutes to 1 o'clock. So we got a guest drop by, Josiah Karaoke Shege, a partner here with the Standard Group PLC. In fact, him and his colleague just were brushing through the studio on a tour of our facility. And he says, he's a big fan of this show, but he doesn't always agree with what I say. Sometimes he agrees with me. Sometimes he has his reservations. So I asked him just the quick question. Absolute and I are in the studio. We're like, why does giving your children what you've never had focus around material possessions? And then guess what he says? It's a trauma response. He says it's a trauma response because you don't know what else to do. You're like, I'm just going to use the street version. You throw money at the problem. But he says it all goes down to priorities on an individual level. What is more important to you? A good life, aka money, versus family. Then you'll know what you're going to instill in your children. He says he is now immersing himself into strengthening his relationship with his father, because the father's trauma response was throw money at the problem. But now to break the cycle with his daughter, he says there's jobs he will turn down so that he can spend more time with her and not find himself in the same predicament he's the generation before found themselves in. And then Absolute and I were just, adulting is crazy. You know, the cost of living, angalia the economy in our country. So half the time you're robbed of spending time with your family to focus on fending for the said family. You know? I'm just like, it's a lot. It's a delicate balance, because for you to even give those material possessions, it means that there's some places there's certain things you'll not be able to do for that same family. It's the truth. You pick a fancy school for your child, but then you can't show up for sports day because those bills don't pay themselves. Yeah. So it's a big conversation. We could stay here all day if we decide to get into the minuscule parts of it, but let's hear from you. But I love that this is a trauma response. Why does giving your children what you've never had focus around material possessions? So let me get to your comments before we get back into the jams. Peter Tirop says, short-sightedness of the world system. Sound like Laura Mbatha, like it's capitalism. It's a capitalistic world. No, but you say short-sightedness of the world system. Abraham gave his children something more valuable than material things. Thank you for bringing the Bible into this conversation. Mwanja Wycliffe with your kawaida fire emoji. Bosco X says it's our responsibility. You can't deny your child a good life when you're capable. Because you never lived that kind of life doesn't mean you can't give it back. Good life rolls around material things, I think you mean. Ekrane Ahmad says, because that's what we lacked. Did your parents kiss you and say, I love you? Did they show you physical affection? Did your father say sorry when he made a mistake? How many times has your father looked you straight in the eye for nothing and he didn't mess up, nothing wrong, you didn't have a near-death experience, he just told you, I love you. That's what we're talking about. Their shortcomings, the things that you didn't grow up with. It wasn't just material things. There's certain things your parents could have done better. It's not a blame game conversation. Because I told you they were ill-equipped to know and to do certain things. So what are you doing better than them in all areas, all facets of your children's upbringing? Not just the material possessions. Cindy? Jerry Emo there says, maybe because you don't want your children to experience lack, because you probably associate many of the decisions and outcomes to lack. Jerry, I like how you've put that, because someone can argue, like our mothers. I married young, I married early because there was scarcity in my family. So I had to marry because marriage is also an exchange of resources, right? So some people were trading their children off for material possessions. So I understand in that regard. Agoroda Lawa says children need love, structure and nurturing, not material goods. Ebu, high five yourself. I love it. Now we are talking. That's the conversation we intended to have with you. Mulwa Al says because that's what you never had. Ama may mispoint, but Nisawa, keep listening. Martin Okongo says because I never got to have them and it makes me and the kids bond easier. Shaba is listening. It says, good stuff, guys. You're tuned in on spicefm.co.ke from Muscat. Thank you, Martin Bishop. You say, my son is 1 month old. I made a commitment I will give him what I never got, as much as it may rotate on finances, such as taking him to the best school and buying him the kids' stuff. I promise myself to always be present for him which I also never had. You will see. Find the money bit. No one, by the way, is disputing that. Throw money at the problem, but there's certain things you also never had. My father never watched me play football, for instance. You make sure that you're actively involved in your children's extracurricular activities as well. Steven says, that's a trauma the 90s kids carry. And we're doing nothing to you, by the way, but it's true. You say it's a trauma response the 90s kids carry. We were raised in unequal times where you could be sent away from a neighbor for watching TV or they're cooking chapo. Now we project that by promising the whole world to our kids. You heard it. Linda Luisa says, because growing up, doing well, in quotes, was all about physical possessions. And we envied children from the neighborhood who had it all, not knowing that they could have been struggling with the emotional or psychological part of life. I love it. I love this conversation. I wish we could go on and on and on, but then it would be a podcast. But let's go back to the jams. 6 minutes to the top of the hour. So stand by for the news with Lisa Mira. But I have 2 more comments before we get into song, right?
I think it's because what you never had. Really, basically, most people understand it as material possessions.
I think people are fixed-minded that with the material things, they have everything with them. So that's why they prefer on focusing on material possession more than any other thing that can be of help.
And if the beat live, you know Lil Ju made it.